Yeah, okay, we're going. Okay, so I promised you guys I would get you an interview with Miss Alexa Windsor for Halloween, and she showed up in appropriate Halloween attire. Looking very lovely and gothic today, darling.
Looking lovely and gothic, just the way my soul likes it.
Your lipstick is as dark as your soul.
My eyeliner is as dark as my soul.
And I mean, you write murder mysteries, so it's
Yes.
it's a thing that goes.
Murder mystery and horror, spooky stuff in general.
A woman after my own heart. Okay, so
Dark comedy is the way to go.
it's the only way to go. We're gonna start with real general stuff. So they've seen you. I mean, last time I saw you, you were dressed as May
Yes.
at the convention. So let's tell them like who you actually are. Like, who is Alexa Windsor? Where do you come from? Where'd you go?
I am from Illinois. I went to school at Southern Illinois University at Edwardsville, and I went for an English major.
Every writer's first mistake.
Yes. I minored in creative writing because I thought that would set me on the path. And it was a bittersweet experience. The thing about creative writing classes is they love to cut you down, but you also learn a lot. You become very persistent in the field.
It's a balance, right?
It's a balance.
So when did you start writing, and what did you start writing, and how did you end up here? What went wrong?
I feels, I started writing really when I was in like elementary school, and they did like young authors programs in my school. And basically they would have us, in first to fourth grade write stories that, when the time of year came around. And I always looked forward to it. I know there were a lot of people who did not, because writing was every kid's bane, but I looked forward to it. And it just helped me relax. I loved coming up with story ideas and putting them down, and generally they were about ghosts and spooky stuff even then.
So like, it's time to write a Halloween story, and you were like, yay!
Exactly.
Tiny Alexa was like there for that.
And I remember one of my first stories was about dragons finding an orb, and then later on it was a pirate story, and
Everyone needs a good pirate story.
About a girl going to a lighthouse and finding a ghost. And then it just kind of developed from there. I started coming out with universes, and I remember me and my friends used to pass around a notebook in school and write. It was like a non-computer form of RP.
Yep.
So that was kind of how we collaborated on things.
Back in the day.
Back in the day. And when I got to college, I decided to turn into a, career type of thing. Actually, my first year of college, I was going to go to Brigham Young University, and I was going to be an animator. And then...
This is news to me.
Yes. I was going to be an animator, but the animation program is very competitive. And when I was doing it, I realized I just don't really have the patience to draw the things over and over and over. But I wanted to tell the stories.
So you found another way.
Yeah, so I transferred back to Illinois just because my sister had gone to SIUE, and that's where I fell into the creative writing program. So everything kind of lined up, and I just like to write. I can do it wherever I want to, about whatever I want to.
So about the process, like what is the hardest part about the writing process for you?
Putting it down on paper.
So the actual writing.
Yes.
The actual entire part of the job.
Because I find that my mind will pick things up throughout the day, or, in media that I'm consuming, just themes that I like. And just characters will emerge in my mind throughout my days. Plots will kind of develop themselves as I go along, but I have the hardest time sitting down and translating that onto the document in a way that I like, and making it sound satisfactory to me. So that's...
You have an entire universe in your head, and you're like, where do I even start?
And I wish it could just automatically translate itself. I wish I could plug the computer into my
your
head.
brain.
So that's the hardest part for me, is putting it down.
Yeah, the actual process of it. Okay, so something nicer than that. What's your favorite part about it? What's your favorite part about writing?
Favorite part about it is just once everything clicks and you find yourself in this creative flow, it's watching as the story and the characters emerge from the paper, and just
It's
making them
the
believable.
creator's version
It is, yeah.
of Runner's High.
Yes. And then just when the characters start playing off of each other, when you find dialogue that works, and you just feel like this is something you would want to read.
Oh yeah, when you write
Yeah.
something and you're like, this appeals to me. I want to
Yes.
find out what happens.
It's writing for yourself, in a way.
Well, you're your own first audience, right?
Yes.
Always.
Yes.
I have more questions. I'm doing the same thing I did last time, where I have the questions written down over there because Lord knows I won't remember them. So we're gonna keep talking about good stuff. What's your favorite thing about your own books?
Favorite thing about my own books? The dogs.
The dog. Okay, I've read Alexa's novels. Took me a while because I'm a loser, but I got there. So I can go on about them for hours, but
In the April Gladys Dog Walking Mysteries, there are a lot of
puppies.
puppies that are based off of, dogs that I've walked, if not just cameos, actual dogs put in. But I find that writing them is just a lot less complicated than writing a person sometimes, and you can just have fun with it. And I've heard a lot of people say that writing animals is tricky because it, becomes repetitive, but you just make the dog a person, a character in itself.
And
Does that make sense?
You do a good job with that. And the interesting thing that I found about the way that you write the animals in your novels is that they're consistently characterized, but not characterized. Like, they're not, they aren't people. They're definitely dogs. And they act like dogs. I mean, God knows you've worked with enough dogs, Dogs. But, like, I have a lot of affection. I'm always reading these books like, oh my God, what if something happens to the dog? It's like my number one question. It's like, no.
Another thing that I like doing in my own writing is giving each character a voice that fits their point of view. It's making them become a person in such a way that they would be able to sound like they were a person,
Characterizing them through their dialogue.
Yeah, not making them a cookie cutter of the same archetype. It's giving them a backstory enough that they would be able to have their own voice.
I'm going to bring up the thing that you did in your last book. You had two characters have a conversation over text.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so...
There are many text conversations in my books.
Well, it makes sense. You're writing about... You write modern
Stuff
stories,
in the modern day.
So people have cell phones and they text a lot. And your texting is some of the most honest. Because I'm sure that you know this, when you read books about young adults especially, sometimes teenagers, depending on who the author is, their texting is always really hilariously dated. I'm not sure when or where that started or why. But, like, I read your conversations, I was like, oh, like, this is I know these things, I say these things. So, congrats for making me not die of cringing.
Oh.
Good job.
I tried to make it to where, April has proper speech when she's texting Mark, her love interest, during the first two books. As well as her boss, she writes very formally. She actually uses punctuation and capitalizes things.
And she talks to her roommate.
And when she talks to her roommates, it's a jumble of, are you? Are you there? What you do's?
Yeah, and, like, all the slang that you would use, and exclamation points that you would use when you're talking to a roommate. So, what's one thing that you want to improve on going forward? Also, what are you drinking? Will you show them what you're drinking?
I am drinking blood. Just brought back from the blood bank.
From the blood bank?
Very energizing blood. You want
Can
to
I try it?
some?
I'm going to try it. Okay. So you can answer your question about what you'd like to improve in your writing. I'm going to drink some blood.
I would really love to learn to edit and write second drafts without cringing at my own writing.
I should not have had a drink while you're answering that. Okay. Okay. You want to get to be better at editing and writing your drafts.
Yes, and I want to learn to not be so self-critical, because so often I'll try to edit my own work, and I'll just feel like it's too childish in my own mind, and I have to learn to be more lenient and be more accepting of my own voice, and, learn that things aren't unsalvageable like I think that they are. That's kind of the hardest thing in my mind that happens. Because we are our own worst critics. And that is the case with me.
With you especially, because having read your work, every time I read your work, I'm always really excited about it. Just because the books they're very accessible and they're very enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
It's like taking time out of your day to do something that you really have fun with when you're reading them. So to find out that making them causes you so much angst, I'm always like, no. But not doing that is definitely a good idea of improvement.
Angst.
So yeah, let's build off that. What's the worst piece of writing advice you've ever been given?
Okay, so I have to share an experience that we talked about earlier that was in one of my creative writing classes.
It's a good story. You can tell me again.
So I attended a class in college. It was like a 200 or 300 level class. And the teacher would give us assignments that was all across the board, either prose or poetry. We were challenged to write a poem about a place. And I was trying to load it up with sensory images, because that's kind of what speaks to me, in poetry or prose. And I chose Cedar Point, which is an amusement park that's full of roller coasters, because that's where I have gone yearly since I was a little kid.
Cedar Point is
really
emotionally important to all of the WAD.
I was raised on roller coasters. There are a lot of smells of even just like rain on the concrete. There are, cotton candy and all sorts of food.
The distant sound of children screaming.
Mm-hmm. Very speaks to me as like a goth writer, especially the screams or music to my ears. And at one point, I described the seagulls in this park surrounded by water as, the laughing of all the gulls. And when I handed the assignment in, the teacher had written down, "Do seagulls really laugh?" And I just remember looking at that and going, well, it's a simile. It's how I interpreted the sound and was trying to put it down in a poem.
And if you've ever met seagulls, the answer is yes.
Yes, they do laugh.
Honestly.
And so that kind of impressed on me that, hey, writing is a very subjective field. What speaks and makes sense to one person may not speak and make sense to another. So I was like, you know what, Professor? I don't care. I'm going to write what I want.
I'm going to write about seagulls, and you're not going to understand it. That's going to be the way of your thing.
Yes. So that's...
Speaking about writing what you want, I'm trying to get better at segues here, and you can tell I'm failing at it. What are the specific challenges about writing mystery? Mystery is usually your genre. Your last two books are about mysteries. Your next one's going to be about mystery. We being the rest of the WAD, don't write in that genre. So, what is specifically hard about that?
Specifically hard is, it depends on...
Besides everything.
How you want it, besides everything, besides putting it down, is how you want to engage your reader. Now, there are some people who write mysteries who will say, I want my reader to figure out who done it before my characters.
Yeah.
I personally like to present everything in such a way where the readers are trying to figure out the mystery for themselves. And so the hardest part with that is trying to scatter the clues throughout the story in a way that makes sense, instead of having them be direct clues. Yeah, that it making it too easy for the characters. That's what you want to avoid doing.
The last book, the second April Gladys Dogwalker mystery, I read it and I was like, what? And then I finished it and I was like, oh, why didn't I see that coming?
Yeah.
And then I went back and I was like, oh, I can look at all these hints that are pointing towards the answer that I didn't see.
So it's kind of engaging the reader through clues, engaging the characters, because it would be kind of disappointing to lead the characters through a one-path maze. You want them to do this.
Yes.
And that's where red herrings come into play if you choose to go through that. Sometimes your characters may try to figure out something, think they have a solution, but that's not the solution, because that's what happens in real life.
Yeah.
it'd be awfully boring if, they had the right answers every single time. Because that doesn't feel believable. Yeah, people make mistakes.
All the time, repetitively.
Yes.
All the time. But I noticed you had a very specific way that you set your mysteries up in the last book. There's reviews. I wrote reviews about both of the April Goddess Skywalker mysteries because I literally won't shut up about them, as you can tell through this interview. Because I don't know that I'm like your biggest fan, but I'm definitely the most vocal.
Oh.
So I have a lot of shit to say. Read it, it's good.
I need to write reviews of your books.
Last question. I think is the last question. We'll see what kind of tangent we get on.
Yes.
What have you learned about working in this kind of coalition? Because we did just kind of like co-opt you. Hey, you want to write the books?
Yes.
You were doing it already, but we're like, hey, come write books with us as part of our unit.
Has been one of the most positive experiences of being an author I think I've ever had. Just having a support group, a system of, having people you can bounce ideas off to, of having people to actually get you to write when you're not feeling like writing, and sometimes
that's what we're gonna do today.
Sometimes they imprison you in front of your laptop and don't let you leave until you've written something.
That might be based on a true story.
Or putting Ian Mouse in writer's jail, or editing jail.
I was in editing jail, okay?
Yes.
I'm going back to editing jail.
So, but yes, definitely a writers' coalition is excellent. And it's just having everybody's creative juices just all working at the same time, hearing other people's ideas and getting really excited about it.
Nano's coming up, National NaNoWriMo Month.
Mm-hmm.
All of the founding members, I'm gesturing over there because Ace is hiding because he's been banished, are participating. As well as a lot of our squad, our WAD squad in chat, are also joining us. So we do a lot of talking about National NaNoWriMo Month in chat, as well as host sprints and stuff. So it's kind of motivating.
Mm-hmm.
You're almost out of blood.
I know. Gonna have to refill. Gonna have to get
I'm
some
not
more
a bee.
bags out of the blood cooler.
I'm not a bee, so you're out of luck.
Oh, jeez. I wonder if Ace is a bee.
Okay, before we go find out, we should probably cut this short. So thank you for coming and answering all these questions.
Well, thank you for having questions for me to answer.
I always have all the questions. It's an absolute joy to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna go and eat Halloween candy and play scary video games.
Mm-hmm.
So we will see you guys another time.